Call this meeting to order. I would invite you to rise for invocation with Chris Bauer for the village, and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Loving Father, we thank you on behalf of those who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself and health and all that we need to fulfill the various callings that you've given us. I pray for everyone here today who has different duties to carry out for this council. I pray that you would grant them the wisdom to govern, to make decisions, even amidst potential conflict and varying issues and differences of opinion, to give them a sense of the goodness and welfare for the needs of the people represented. Confidence to do what is good and fitting and right, and the ability to work together in harmony. Lord, I pray for peace for them and for all who are gathered here. I pray for this agenda that is set before them today to give an assurance of what would please you and what would be good for all who are represented. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chris. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Payne.
Present.
Commissioner McFall.
Present.
Commissioner Bell.
Present.
County Clerk Barr.
Present.
County Attorney Jackson.
Present.
County Manager Bryant.
Present.
Planning and Zoning Director Koch.
Present.
Next, we move up to the approval of agenda.
Mr. Chair, I am unaware of any changes we need to make today, so I move to approve today's agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Move to the consent agenda. I will note that there is no scheduled public hearings coming up.
With that, Mr. Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Move on to administrative and informational staff elected reports. Move to our county clerk's month report. We'll turn to Katie Barr. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
This report is for the month of February. The total motor vehicle fees, sales taxes, and recording fees collected were $992,700.41. Fremont County's portion for disbursement is $586,521.66, which is 59% of the total fees, and is $20,332.13 more than February of last year. So year to date, our office is up $139,778.86 from last year. It's not too bad for the beginning of the year.
The trend continues.
It does.
That's not a bad thing at all. With that, Mr. Chair, I move to accept the county clerk's monthly report for February 2018.
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Move on to the county manager's report. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Sunny.
So I will make this brief. We have a lengthy agenda in front of us. So a few things that we're working on. A few of us from here at the county are part of the Child Maltreatment Prevention Team. And so we've had 2 meetings so far to discuss some of the needs throughout the community and some of the issues that may be causing child maltreatment and things that we can do or resources that we can reach out to help prevent that. So it's definitely, unfortunately, a need in our community. So it's something that this group, it's quite a large group that's working on this. And then I attended the area managers luncheon last Thursday, so it's always good to reach out to the other managers throughout the community and see what all is going on in their organizations. And then yesterday, we actually met with individuals from the city of Florence. And so it's always good to meet with their council members and county or their city manager to have discussions with them. There's a lot of really cool things going on over there. So they're actually having new restaurants opening and all kinds of fun stuff. So if you are looking for something to do, get over there and check them out. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Other staff and elected officials reports. Anybody have anything?
Sure. I would like to quickly mention last Friday we held our second annual celebration for Fremont's Exceptional Women. Our county attorney, Brenda Jackson, and I both have the opportunity to serve on that board to bring this event to Fremont County. And I just would like to say a quick thank you to everyone who was involved. The board, all of those 15 women who were honorees, congratulations to all of them, as well as the 5 of those 15 who were our awardees. If you have not yet had the opportunity to be involved or to attend this incredible event, I seriously urge you to look for it next year. It was a wonderful evening, so thank you to everyone.
Was a wonderful evening.
I got a little something. I just kind of want to update folks that might be here curious. Still working on money for flood mitigation for the Hayden Pass burn scar. We're getting a little closer to that, working within RCS, federal government and the state, so we're still working on that. But with that being said, just kind of a friendly reminder, it's very, very, very dry out there, and the winds keep blowing, so just use due diligence when you're out. No cigarettes out the window. Be careful when you're doing any kind of work outside. We don't need any more of those fires, so keep that in mind. Thank you.
Anybody have anything else? Okay, citizens who wish to address the commissioners on items not on the agenda. Do we have anybody that wants to talk to us about anything else? The Rockies coming up season, nothing? Okay. We have no old business. We'll move right into new business. We have a liquor license renewal. PS Camping Incorporated doing business as Prospectors RV Park. Do we have Rhonda Sherrado?
Yes, sir.
Come on up.
Wow, that was great.
Just got here.
You just made it.
You're not late. Your timing was perfect.
You're just perfect, yeah. Did I pronounce that right, Sherrod?
Sherrod, that is
Okay.
correct.
Okay, what do we got going on here?
Mr. Commissioner, my husband and I, Michael Sherrado, Rhonda Sherrado, own Prospectors RV Resort at 43595 US Highway 50 up on the hill. And I don't know if anyone's been following the news lately with regards to Black Hills Energy and what's been going on with the city and the fact that their contract is up, franchise contract is up for renewal. Long story short, I've been battling with Black Hills this winter with regard to a $15,000 deposit that they that they assessed to our park, and trying to get that $15,000 deposit paid over the winter when we technically don't have any income has been difficult to say the least. So our request is a waiver of the late fee as it pertains to the liquor license that we've applied for and have held for 4 years up there. It's been a struggle. The whole winter's been a struggle for our business. And we're just asking for consideration on that late fee due to the fact that we have been trying to get this deposit paid. We are $9,000 in of our deposit, and the $100 late fee, although it sounds very nominal, is a big fee to incur at the same time where we're trying to open the park and keep everything up and running. So we're just asking for a one-time consideration of the late fee.
Okay.
The late fee is a local fee, not a state fee, so the board has discretion.
Thank you. Staff report?
We've never had any problem with this park before with their license. Everything has been good. They've not been late before, so this would be the first time that they've asked for this.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
No questions, just a comment. This really is a request only for waiver of the late fee. It's not an actual renewal for the liquor license itself.
Okay, that's all it is.
Yes.
Okay.
So with that, Mr. Chair, I would move to waive the late fee for PS Camping, Inc., doing business as Prospectors RV Park under the circumstances.
I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
You
And
bet.
I note your renewal was in order, so that'll be approved administratively.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Move on to item number 2. This is a subdivision exemption for a grant subdivision exemption. And do we have Sydney Schreier? Does that sound right?
Yeah, yes, close.
Okay.
Close.
Close enough? At least you know
morning.
we're talking to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm a land surveyor for Landmark Surveying and Mapping out of Salida. We've been working with AHRA actually for about 3.5 years on this this little project, but it is to provide some public river access in the Texas Creek area. Basically splitting off about an acre on the west end of the Grant parcel with an existing cul-de-sac that would allow for public river access. And at the same time, we are consolidating the Grant parcel with a piece that they acquired by quitclaim deed from Union Pacific Railroad. So we'll be cleaning up the remainder of their parcel, consolidating that at the same time.
Okay. Matt, staff report?
All right. The state statute does allow for the commission to grant a subdivision variance or exemption in the case of public good and purpose. They're not trying to circumvent the subdivision regulations through this process. This is the second one in the area that we've done here recently.
Correct, and there's one across the river on some Union Pacific.
Yeah, and it is cleaning up a lot of the issues in that area. This will be deeded to the Colorado Parks and Wildlife for public access to the river. This area is also where the county currently takes water out of the river for use for the county roads and such in that area. So that's generally where it's at. We've reviewed the information provided, and we find it fits the request. So we do recommend approval of this.
There won't be anything that keeps the county from pulling water out of there then,
From
or
my
in that area.
understanding, there's an agreement in place that'll stay in place.
Okay. And by the way, that water has been augmented, so that's not an issue, or it's in the process. So we're just not going down taking water, is my point. Okay, any questions?
I have no questions. I think this is creating a public benefit that very many people would enjoy, so thank you for the application.
Okay,
I agree with that, and Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve grant subdivision exemption for SV 17-001 for the grant subdivision exemption.
Second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to item number 3, Cranberry subdivision filing number 4 for planned unit development. Do we have Terry Clear?
Terry did contact her office. He's out of the state.
Okay.
And so he asked me to maybe present this to you for your consideration. This is for Cranberry Park. It's a modification of their subdivision. It's a PUD located out off of Steinmeier. What they are requesting is the remainder of the properties on the south side of South Cranberry Loop. They are wanting to consolidate into individual parcels and removing the unit lines to allow them a little more discretion on building standalone units and separating the duplex units. So basically there's 8 units available on that side. They are not increasing the density. It will remain at 8 units. This will just give them the latitude of using the property a little more in a better way. So.
Okay,
I do have a question for
Okay.
Matt.
Go ahead.
Could you talk a little bit about the setbacks, please, as far as what the setbacks currently are, and does this meet the setbacks that they are required to meet?
Okay. They went through another adjustment a while back and received approval for a 13-foot front setback, and this will still meet that approval. The side yards will be 5 foot, and this will still meet that. Along the back and the rear of these lots, there is a 40-foot wide easement for railroad and sewer and gas line purposes, and that will remain in effect, and so they will have a 40-foot rear setback because of that easement. So everything else will stay the same. So.
okay. Your department would like to see this move forward?
Yeah, we do recommend approval of this.
Okay.
It fits with the
All
development.
right. Any other questions of Matt?
No.
I have no further questions, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the final plat and planned unit development, Department File FP 18-001 for Cranberry Park subdivision filing number 4.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, we'll move on to item number 4. We have Fremont County Tourism Council annual report with us today. We have Steve Carriman. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
Sunny has my PowerPoint presentation, so give it a second to get that up for us.
So just, yeah.
She's waiting for me.
Get off there.
So who do I just point to you? I previously provided a copy of the full report to Sunny, and I believe it was in your packet for the week. There's a lot more information in the report than there is in the PowerPoint program, so if you will indulge us with reading through the report in its entirety when you have time, that would be great. Before I start this morning, though, I really want to recognize the work of the Fremont County Tourism Council. This is an all-volunteer board, as you know, the only all-volunteer destination marketing organization in the state. Blaine Heckert, one of our board members representing the Quality Inn and Suites, is here with us this morning. Rhonda, who just left, is also now serving with the Regional Tourism Council. She replaced Kristen Economy, who left that council. So, you know, just a lot of support for tourism and things. And I really want to extend my appreciation to that board for their work. It is a formidable bit of work, as you can imagine, and they all do a great job.
Steve, would you like to name those people to just give them that recognition?
I will, thank you. Kristen Economy is the treasurer for the Fremont County Tourism Council. Peggy Gare is our secretary with the Royal Bridge and Park. Kristen actually represents Fremont Adventure Recreation on the board. Blaine, who's with us this morning with Quality Inn and Suites, is a board member. Larry Hill, who represents Starlight Campground, is a board member. Beth Katchmer, owner of Pizza Madness, is the vice chair. I'm the chairman, as you know, and John Miller with Wild Willie's Antiques in Florence is also one of our board members.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Sunny, if you can just pop to the first slide, that would be great. We had a good year in tourism in Colorado last year, and a good year in Fremont County as well. We budgeted lodging tax remittance at $185,000. We collected just over $229,000, as you can see there. So that was $25,558 more than we collected in 2016. So that continues an upward trend. We had our best year ever. This is the highest lodging tax collections the county has ever had since lodging tax went into effect. In addition to what we collected in lodging tax remittance, we're very happy last year to have received the CTO matching grant for $25,000. That was the 4th year that we received that grant. We are now on our 5th consecutive year receiving that grant. That's unprecedented in the state of Colorado. And there's a lot of competition for that. So kudos to Brian Jordan and his team with VistaWorks in particular for putting together an excellent application for that. The city also supported us last year with $25,000 in funding, which gave us a total of almost $280,000 to work with. You'd think we could stay within that budget, but we would have if it hadn't been for a little administrative glitch with an OEDIT grant. I'll explain in a moment later, but we did receive an OEDIT grant last year. We're notified of the grant, $75,000 grant, and we began making some expenditures against that grant, and they ultimately didn't approve those expenditures because of some administrative mechanisms that they wanted to see in place over and above, which were described in the agreement we signed, actually. So we overspent our budget by just over $31,000. So we'll make that up a little bit this year. It's not really supplanting the money, but that administrative detail is because of the OEDIT grant. Economic impact, this is impressive. This is about a 13% increase in lodging tax collections is what that amounts to. And that's really what the Tourism Council is chartered for, is to increase heads and beds, increase our lodging tax. $229,000 at 2% represents $11 million in lodging tax revenue in the county. That's a pretty amazing number. And that actually represents an increase in lodging revenue of hotels, but pretty much everybody that stays in those hotels is spending money on something else while they're here, whether it's gas or meals, or in the case of our tourists, of course, trips to the bridge, trips on the train, rafting, and you name it. So it really does have a pretty amazing economic impact. Here's another look at that impact and the economic development that brings to this community. These are 2015 and 16 figures. The 2017 figures will be available in June. But this shows you the increase that we've had the last couple of years, both in travel spending. This is specifically for Fremont County, according to research that's conducted for the Colorado Tourism Office. Earnings of $0.3 million. A few less jobs. I think this jobs number is actually low, though. I don't know exactly how they tabulate that number, but I would guess it really is a little bit higher than that anyway. Lodging, local taxes. This is an impressive number. I like to think of this in terms of that's money our local taxpayers would be responsible for were it not for the impact of tourism on this community. That's money that you'd have to extract from them some other way in order to meet the obligations of the county and things. State taxes didn't change. They were flat last year. One of the big things we did last year was a major overhaul of our website and a new logo. The logo that we had been around for many, many years. It didn't really represent the region very well. Didn't take advantage of that iconic gorge that everyone knows us so well for. As I travel around the state, if I say I'm from the Royal Gorge region and Canyon City or Fremont County, there's an immediate recognition of where that is. Frankly, if I tell them I'm from Canyon City, they're not quite sure where that's at. They not really know where Fremont County is, but everybody knows where the Royal Gorge is. So we've taken advantage of that with the new logo. You can see it represented here a couple of ways. We did a complete remake of our website. We took advantage of some of the recommendations from a marketing study that was done for us in 2016 by an organization in Boulder that came up with this ditch and we used ditch the pavement, ditch the office, ditch the ordinary, and various takeoffs on that same tagline. And then this is just a screenshot from one of the pictures that's on our website this morning. If you haven't gone to RoyalGorgeRegion.com, which is also a new acquisition last year as well. We've previously been using Royal Gorge Travel. The Royal Gorge Region has a better response on the web and things like that. So just a really great makeover of the website, new logo last year, which has really added to things. This is another incredible story. This is our Facebook outreach and our digital marketing outreach on Facebook. Over 2 million people, 2.4 million people reached. That's our name in front of 2.4 million people through Facebook, and we wouldn't have been able to get out there any other way. What's really amazing about this, because the number of impressions, almost 6 million impressions. That's just our name, okay? It doesn't mean that they actually interacted with it per se, but they've seen the name Royal Gorge Region in front of them, and that is that subliminal kind of thing. And hey, I've never seen that somewhere, and they go back and look for it a little bit more. The number to really look at here is the actual engagement, number of likes, shares, and comments. Any of you on Facebook know how important that is. That's like the golden. It's the golden trophy at the end, really, if you get somebody to like, share, or comment on one of your posts. The other thing that's amazing here is the incredible economic productivity is this. For 0.008 cents per person, we're able to achieve these kind of results on Facebook. So using digital marketing is way more economically effective than some of the more traditional print things, which we still continue to do because there's demand for them, but this is really a big performer. Same with Google on the next slide here. 46,500,000 impressions. Again, those impressions are simply putting the name Royal Gorge Region in front of people on Google AdWords, on YouTube, which Google also owns. So a lot of this is video impressions as well that we make on people. A little higher acquisition cost here, but still a great performer and very, very effective for us. The visitor guide, more traditional marketing. Last year we did 120,000 copies of visitor guide. One thing we were able to do last year is fulfill every request from every person who wanted one of those visitor guides mailed to them. We've not done that in the past. That made us put us at over 14,000 direct requests. So that's actually mailing you a copy of the visitor guide in a branded envelope to wherever you happen to be in the world when you request one. That's not cheap. That's about $2.60 a copy by the time we get them in the envelope and mailed out and things. So that acquisition cost obviously is much higher here. But these are something that people look for, and we distribute it through a number of different channels, through Colorado Activity Centers, which is our publisher, through Certified Folder, which has the brochure racks at visitor destinations all over the state. Through the Colorado Welcome Centers, a particularly great place to get it out to is our 10 Welcome Centers around the state. Of course, the Chamber of Commerce and through our local businesses. Plus, to supplement that, we had over 75,000, nearly 76,000 opt-in email subscribers. This is not spam by a long shot. We have to quantify that list and scrub that list to qualify those names on a regular basis. So these are people who want to read about us, and that list continues to grow as well. The Chamber of Commerce is also a great partner for us. I think the number here to look at is over 5,000 walk-in visitors to the Visitors Cabin in Veterans Park. A lot of international guests, a lot of out-of-state guests, of course. We see the large majority of our visitors from about 12 states. Over 75% of our visitors come from just 12 states. Texas, of course, being a very, very big one. So some other great indicators of the performance. Another shot of our website to end the presentation there for you, and I'll be happy to take any questions.
I do have one quick question. How often do you send out those email updates that people opt into?
They go out, I believe, twice a month.
I'm actually on the list. I've seen what is sent out. I think it's incredibly helpful. It gives a lot of information. So if you would like, take this opportunity to tell people how to get their addresses added into that so they start receiving those.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, well, we've got a couple minutes before we get to our public hearing, so we'll go ahead and do number 5. It's a consideration of a resolution, I believe it's number 8, appropriating additional sums of money to defray expenses in excess of amounts budgeted for and appropriated by Fremont County for the budget year ending December 31st, 2017. Sunny, do you want to comment on this?
Sure. So this is just a standard resolution that we do each year. So we have a lot of departments that get additional funds or have grants come in or something. So this is us authorizing those expenditures for 2017. And I will just quickly show this slide up there. So that's what, it's a total of $1,135,000. The bulk of it is through the self-funded insurance. We did see quite an increase last year. The majority of that is coming back to us through our reinsurance program. So it's something we've been in discussion with, but that's the additional funds that we're asking to have approved.
Okay. For comments?
I don't have any comments, Mr. Chair, but I will make a move to approve resolution number 8, appropriating additional sums of money to defray expenses in excess of amounts budgeted for the appropriated by Fremont County from the budget year 2017.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And we'll finish up with number 6 here. It's a consideration with resolution number 9, authorizing the transfer of appropriated funds between the various funds of Fremont County, Colorado for the budget year ending December 31st, 2017. Turn to Sunny again on this.
So once again, this is just a standard annual resolution. And so this is for the 2017 budget year as we're closing this out. And the total transfers between funds were $5,160,652. The bulk of that was the $3,939,000 that general fund transfers to the Sheriff's Department fund.
That is the amount, Sonny, I believe that we were transferring before the sheriff received his 1-cent sales tax.
Correct. That amount has not changed.
Okay. Thank you. All right. With that, Mr. Chair, I move to approve resolution number 9, authorizing the transfer of appropriated funds between the various funds of Fremont County for the budgeted year ending December 31st of 2017.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Hour has reached 10 o'clock, so we have 3 public hearings here. The very first one is an OPC 14-011, Pure Medical. So do we have Jason Vanstrom with us? Okay, so just sorry to interrupt, but everybody that speaks, could you get really close to the microphone so we can hear it and they can hear on the TV? Thank you.
My name is James Marks. I'm here to represent Pure Medical.
The microphone's not on. I'm not sure it's on.
Fortunately, Mr. Caverman was loud enough we could hear him.
That one is.
Let's have a backup plan.
Sorry about that.
No problem. My name is James Marks. I'm here to represent Pure Medical in place of Jason Vanstrom. I am the property manager and site.
Okay. All right, hold on. Let me get my act together here. Okay, staff report.
We need to open the public hearing, please.
Oh, we need to open a public hearing. Thank you.
We have to do his presentation, then staff report, then open public hearing.
Oh, that's, okay.
Okay, let's
Sorry.
back that up.
Sorry.
Okay.
Everybody back up. Okay, so we have your report, and then we'll have staff report. Okay.
Okay. This is a pretty basic modification. We're just looking to cover our existing cultivation area with canopies. We're not adding cooling walls, anything like that. I went before the water board last night, got our approval for the modification from them. We should be receiving a letter here probably by the end of the week. It's really, there's not a change in cultivation square footage, anything like that. Pretty straightforward. It's mainly just for rain, hail protection, in a sense, kind of crop insurance for us.
How many of those structures are you putting up?
We're basically going to be extending off the existing structure here, 40 feet on one side, 80 foot on the other, and then we'll be adding 2 additional canopy structures next to it.
So they'll be identical to what we see there?
The ones that we'll be extending off will be identical, but the 2 buildings that we're putting next to it are going to be more of an A-frame type setup because they allow for us to put a vent at the top so that we don't have to put in cooling walls or anything of that nature. It'll just naturally allow air to flow out of the building.
So more of an A-frame, okay. Huh.
Very similar to the greenhouse structures that are down on C Street from us, almost the same type, but no sidewalls. Again, it's just going to be just a roof.
Okay. Any questions at this point?
Not now.
Not yet.
Okay, now we'll go to staff report.
All right, they did make an application for the modification. All the requirements were fulfilled, the notifications as well as the posting was completed. When this was originally approved in 2016 with the addition of the trim room, there was a stipulation that it was on a trial period to see how that would go and what the impacts would be. They did get everything completed. They succeeded in the first year without any written complaints or concerns and violations. So we do recommend removal of that trial period. As far as the modification, there are 2 contingencies, and as he noted, that he's working on the one. We need an updated letter from the Penrose Water District referring to this modification, and then we just need to make sure that the taxes have been paid, the property taxes for the property. We did receive 1 letter in regards to this. It was somewhat of a general letter regarding that they had noticed some odor in the area. The regulations that we have, the odor has to be quantitative, and so we send our code enforcement officers out to check and verify whenever we do receive a complaint. And beyond that as well, we actually send them out 2 to 3 times a week to verify odor in the area, and we've never had an issue with this site. Some minor odor on a couple of occasions, but nothing that would register on our our equipment. So we do recommend approval of this modification.
Any questions of Matt? No. Now, we will open up the public hearing. Anybody have any comments on this? Going once, going twice? Okay, no comments. I will close the public hearing. Okay, any other comments from fellow commissioners?
It's Dwayne's turn.
Any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
It's your turn.
My turn. I do have one question.
Sure.
These are just like the picture. How high is the side open on that?
I believe it's 8 foot. That is a 6 foot chain link fence, and then so to the gutter there is 8.
Does that keep the smell inside there, and if a gust comes through the gut, it comes out all at once, or does it disperse pretty evenly, or are there vents in the top?
That building there only has like 2 really small vents that were previously there for heater units that are no longer existing. But yeah, the air pretty much just flows through it pretty naturally throughout the day. It works actually really well because we don't really see too high of temperatures under there, so I wouldn't say that a lot of stagnant air builds up under there. And to also prevent, once we cover all of the square footage, the reason why we went with the other tops is so that vent can allow natural airflow to come through there as readily as possible. We didn't want to hinder or create like a stagnant air pocket in there. So
And the A-frames will do essentially the same thing then? The new ones?
the new ones, so atop the whole crest of the building, there'll be about, I think it's like a 3-foot louver that'll open up, and it'll be the length of the whole entire, almost the whole entire greenhouse.
And it's not to increase production, it's just to protect what you've got.
Yeah, yep.
So again, it would be just during the growing season, correct?
Correct, yeah, this isn't gonna turn into, these aren't year-round greenhouses, it's still just gonna be a seasonal crop that gets pushed through this, through that area, and it, one a year.
And are the A-frames the same size or height that these are?
I believe there'll be a slight pitch just because of the change in elevation on there, but for the most part, it should be, I believe they're 8-foot sidewalls and everything, so it should still be relatively the same.
Okay. Board.
And just a note, they will need to get building permits for all of those structures when they erect them. So,
Okay.
Does that need to be a contingency?
no,
Not
not
really.
for the licensing.
So do we need to have a motion on this plus get rid of the 1-year trial? Does that need to be included in the motion?
This is just on the modification.
This is just on the modification.
Yeah, the renewal will come up.
And that's where the,
Today? Yeah,
It's not today.
not today.
so this is just the
This
modification.
is just on the modification.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve this modification OPC 14-001 for Pure Medical for modification of premises.
With the two contingencies.
With the two contingency items, yes, being the proof that taxes are paid and an updated letter from Penrose Water District.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the second. I made a mistake. We had 4 public hearings, not 3. To the second public hearing, OPC 14-002 High Mountain Meds. Do we have Ryan Foster with us? Hello, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So today I'm here to request approval for a modification of our existing grow. What we are planning on doing is expanding our fence line. So we're going from 0.45 acres to 2 acres. And with the new MED rules that came into effect in January, we're replacing all our fencing with 8-foot tall, 6-gauge with 3 barbed wire.
Ryan, could I have you go a little closer to the
sorry
mic?
about
Thanks.
So we are not adding any greenhouses or anything. This is all outdoor grow. We're just expanding our fence line, about 4 times the size of what it is now.
Would you talk a little bit about the location of this property?
Sure. This is south of Florence in the wets. It is extremely secluded, 3 miles away from any roads or anything like that. We own 40 acres there, and currently we'd just like to use the 2 to grow on. Extremely secluded out in the woods. We're over 1,000 feet away from any other residence or housing.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Staff report.
All right. We do need to note that the original application was for 5 acres. We did receive information last night regarding this, requesting it be reduced to 2 acres. Nothing else in the application changes except just the boundary of the fence that they're proposing. So there are no other changes in that. This is a really good site. We have no concerns, complaints, or violations on this property. It is very secluded. It is all built and run. You are adding a building that's already on the site to be used for your camera facility as well, correct?
That's correct, and that's being added in, so we'll have an entire DVR camera facility just for the security.
Okay, so that is included in the modification, that structure. The items we need for contingencies is a complete copy of the deed or lease for the property. We didn't receive everything in the application. Okay. The notifications to the appropriate fire person, law enforcement need to be done with each renewal. They need to be notified with every application, and please provide that proof to us through that. And then a copy of a valid center license, which expired 9/30 of 2017. I think that's the same one we deal with every year. So those are the items for contingency, and then we do recommend approval of this modification.
Okay, in this packet here, you have items for consideration. Is that more contingency?
Those should be contingency.
Those should be contingencies,
Contingency, yes. Okay. Terminology there. Okay, I'll open a public hearing. Does anybody have any comments on this item? Going once, going twice? I will close the public hearing. Okay, does anybody else have any questions or comments?
The comment that I would have, Mr. Chair, is this board made a concerted effort a couple of years ago to push grows out of residential areas and much more into areas like this one. So we appreciate the fact that you are operating where you are. We wish that some others would take heart and to go out that way as well. But with that, Mr. Chair, I move to approve OPC 14-002, High Mountain Meds LLC, modification of premises as described to us today with the 3 contingency items as noted by Mr. Koch.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, SRU. It's a special review use 17-006 for Crossroads. Do we have with us Dr. Bellantoni? Good morning. And once again, please speak into the microphone pretty close.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't think this microphone's working though.
That one's still not working? Yeah, it's working.
Barely.
Just talk loud.
Good morning.
It's not working.
It's not working.
It's not working.
It's not working. Okay. We're having issues here. This one's working.
This one's working.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay.
Now it's working.
It is working.
It's working. Good morning, commissioners, Mr. Director Koch, what is the title that goes before Mrs. Jackson?
County Attorney.
County Attorney Jackson instead. Thank you. Good morning. As you know, I'm Dr. Bellantoni here as a representative for Crossroads LLC. And we have with us today Mr. Peace, you're familiar with? No. There you go.
Good morning.
And we do have the actual hemp processing expert. If Mr. Rorick would please raise your hand. There we go. So I am just a filler of paper. Okay. I take their information and I appropriately put it into the spaces. But that's the extent. I am not an expert on this. Okay. So my first step is to just take a moment to clarify that this industrial use is in fact for a hemp processing. And hemp is not, I'm going to call it marijuana, just to distinguish it. You're aware of that. This is hemp, which is regulated by Department of Agriculture versus Department of Revenue Marijuana Enforcement Division. So there's two separate things. This is a seasonal outdoor crop that's harvested in the fall. By weight, it has to contain less than 0.3% am I still there? THC.
How much? Say that again. How much?
Less than
it cut out.
0.3%.
Okay. Yeah, I heard that.
See if we have new batteries.
Try that.
Ian has a battery.
Are we good? Okay.
No, it's good.
Is it good?
Yes.
Okay. And this 0.3% by weight THC that is regulated by the DOA, acronyms, got to get them right, is regulated by random field testings by the DOA agents. So in your packet, you have the two tests that were done by random selection and by DOA agents. And you will see in that the harvest was a third, no more than a third from, so it was 0.1 was the highest, I believe was the highest. I'm fading, I got to be careful, don't I? I'm getting this. So what hemp offers, in contrast to the marijuana that's sold in the dispensaries, the licensed dispensaries, whether they be medical or recreational, is hemp offers the medical benefit of the CBD oil without the THC, which is the psychoactive element of the marijuana. Okay, just wanted to be clear. Regarding the application and to address just a couple of comments that came up through the public comments that I received. When I look at a piece of property, and I will be more careful in the future, I suppose, property is taxed, it's classified as residential, ag, or commercial. And I can take an ag property and I can have a single family residence, I can have an 8-unit apartment, depending on zoning. And so in like manner, and the way I approach these things is I can take commercial property and it can be on Main Street for retail, it can be office space, it can be light industry. So I start with a commercial piece of property and then say, I'm going to develop it to this land use, which is light industry. So there were comments that I was misleading. That wasn't the intent, and I sincerely apologize. So this is the clarification. We started with a commercial piece of property. The SRU in 2008 and the zone change did the restaurant and the event center. So this is just another commercial use, that use being light industry. Regarding the fire chief, I had hoped he would bless us with his presence today. We have tried. We all know that dear Chief McKinnon retired the middle of this approval process. And so Chief Sunderman is Florence and Penrose. I spoke to Chief Sunderman on March 1st. It was a very good conversation. He's aware. He's been in the building. He wanted to go back into the building. He wanted to meet with Mr. Rorick. And I gave him Mr. Rorick's contact information via email, and then I called Mr. Rorick and gave Mr. Rorick all of Chief Sunderman's information. And since then, we have exchanged, or I have left messages. The phones tend to be to fax machines, so I'm having problems there. His cell phone doesn't take messages, so I've been emailing regularly to try to get this final inspection. What we did with the chief, what we did do is the fire suppressant system, and you have a copy of that one done on January 3rd. So we did get that, and Chief Sunderman does have that. And so we have been trying to get Chief Sunderman on site. Regarding comments that I received this morning before I left the office at 9 o'clock, there was some supporting documentation provided that does not address the hemp process, or it talks more about marijuana and cultivation and processing, and it is confusing it with what's happening today. So this particular operation is not a cultivation. So the pull on electricity for lighting, that is not what this is. This does not use compressed gases. It's not what this is. And it talks about propane, butane, as that's not what this process is. Again, there's a fire suppressant system, and the fire chief we're trying to get him into the property. There are no open flames. And the electricity, we have paid for the permit and are doing the upgrades to the electricity. Brookside Electric has been hired to do that. So that being said, if you would turn your attention to this, I'm going to try to explain something I know nothing about. But I have pictures, so I think we can do this. And then you can ask Mr. Rorick or Mr. Peets to further explain. So, can you still hear me? Okay. All right. Thank you, Director Koch. Next slide, please. I'm going to try to show you this process. And I want to thank the Planning Commission, just publicly here. They're the ones that brought to my attention that it would really be helpful to be able to understand the process from the plant to the sellable product. So that's what I'm doing here. So that's a dried hemp as it arrives in, and you can see the super sacks, and that's it. Approximately 3,000 pounds were harvested from 8 acres this year. And that's the flour. And they actually hand shuck this. They pull it off by hand, and then they call that the flour. Next slide. And there's your clean flour. They had about 1,500 pounds of clean flour to process. Next slide. And, are we good?
I'm going too fast.
Okay, I thought we, okay. Is that where we are? What's the one before that? Backwards. Okay, got it. Okay. So again, all these product, 1,500 pounds will be processed. Here we go. All right, next slide. So what do we do? This is, all the super sacks, all the product is segregated by super sacks. So when they're transported to the facility, it's in a super sack. Anything, I didn't do anything. Anything that is taken off the premises is taken off in a super sack as well. These are the stems. Next one, the stems are processed through a hammer mill, and then those stems are sold as compost to people who in agriculture. Next slide, please. So there's your 1,500 pounds. They were predicting, so there's about 1,200 pounds of stem. These numbers aren't right, Steve, are they?
No, you addressed that some.
Okay, so of the was it 3,000 pounds originally on the first slide?
Yeah.
Can I? Okay, so 15 pounds is 15 pounds is stems, 15 pounds dried flour.
1,500.
1,500. Thank you. Couple magnitudes. So it's used as compost. I'm sorry. Next slide, please. So the clean flour goes into these baskets. 25 pounds of clean flour per basket. Then the baskets are put into this vacuum extractor. This extractor is where the process goes outside. The extractor will contain 25 gallons of alcohol, and then Steve lowers the basket into this. Next slide. Closes it up under pressure, and after it soaks for 5 to 10 minutes, next slide, he pulls the basket back out, and it sits there and drains for 5 to 10 minutes. And so in the basket is the processed flour, right? And then what's in that silver tank is CBD oil impregnated solvent. Okay? So notice that this moved outside because of the solvent, because of the potential to the buildup of the fumes, but this is a very small scale. We're going to get to scale here in just a little bit. Next slide. Then this CBD impregnated alcohol is then drained into this X-Gen filter, about 12 gallons of it, so half. And that is a special explosion-proof filter box, which then is wheeled into the facility, and the oil is transferred to the keg next to the solvent extracting device here. Coming up. There you go. So under vacuum then, you can see the keg. The tube pulls it into the system, and then the CBD oil, under where it says CBD oil flask, that's where the CBD oil is collected. And that silver containment, that's the 10-gallon water bath that's maintained at about 93 degrees Fahrenheit. And as that flask, CBD oil, spins, then the alcohol is collected in the alcohol flask, and the alcohol is reused again. So the final product is the CBD oil in the flask. This is what the processed flour looks like. What I'd like to do right now is, a concern that came up was the alcohol, residual alcohol in the processed flour. So what I'd like to do is present to you a picture of a potential solution for that.
Thanks. So you keep saying alcohol too. Is this ethanol, isopropyl alcohol? What is it? What percentage?
Yeah, this is reagent. This is what's used in distilleries. What is this called? What is this machine? This is called a dewatering screw. And what they can do with this is press the processed flour. They can press the processed flour and squeeze out any residual or as much residual alcohol as they can, solvent, so that there's less in the final processed flour that becomes cattle feed. Okay? Next slide. I'm going to keep going here. So this is the final product. Approximately 20 pounds of flour makes up 1 jar. And this is, as you can see, this is a hands-on process. It's very, it goes in small batches. Next slide, please. So then those jars are sold to these types of businesses, In and Out, Bee's Knees, and they take that CBD oil and they make the product. So this is an intermediary product that never sees the retail market, if you will. It's the commercial wholesale type industry that it goes to. And there's a plethora of products out there.
Okay.
Something that has happened since the Planning Commission meeting is that of the 1,500 pounds of flour that is predicted to be retrieved, they have sold 1,200 pounds of that to another hemp processor. The delay of this and just the slowdown and everything has prevented them, and then the growing season's coming up. So left on site is approximately 300 pounds, which, if approved, this would take less than a week, because about four batches can be processed a day, and they could be done with this in about a week. Another issue that they're proposing or discussing for the next season is one of two things. One is constructing indoors, because right now that not solvent extractor, but the filter basket is outdoors. The use of that solvent is outdoors for ventilation purposes. Either one, building an explosion-proof room with the ventilation and all that has to happen, so that means that all of that filtration would happen inside that special room, number one, which is a capital cost of about $150,000, or two, possibly changing the process so that it's water-based, or so that we could eliminate the use of the alcohol. So one of those two things have already been proposed and discussed internally. Okay.
Any questions?
I have just a couple of questions at this point. First, I'm curious to know, what is the super sack material? What is that made of?
It's just a synthetic fiber. It's a synthetic polyfiber. Actually, you will see this for gravel. People who do medium-sized river rock, they'll carry it in super sacks. Onions from the east, they carry it in super. It's easy because then they can just take a forklift or a bucket, a loader with the teeth on the front, and just lift those babies up. What?
Forks.
Teeth.
Forks.
Teeth. Yes, Commissioner McFall. Teeth, and they can lift those. They're easy to handle.
So it sounds almost like the same sort of material that you find in reusable shopping bags. That's kind of what it looks like.
It's a coarsely woven fiber,
okay,
and it's used for many uses, not just this. Yes, okay. But it's a nice way to manage and segregate the products. As you can see, there's a lot of different products. You're bringing in the dried hemp, you have the stems, you have the milled stems, you have the flour, you have the processed flour, and it allows them to segregate it in the same containers.
And those bags are being reused multiple times? They're not used once and thrown away?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm also curious to know exactly where outside this dunking process is happening, because I don't see it on my maps.
Do you have a... Oh, thank you, kind sir.
It's not on
there. Right here. Right here, right? There's a concrete pad right here.
Mm.
And there's double doors. So there's a set of double doors here for the first floor, and a double door over here for the first floor. And it's over here.
And that's on the north end then?
Northeast corner.
Right.
Northeast.
Okay.
That's all I have at this time.
Okay.
So I have a question regarding that piece of equipment also. There's talk of it going into an explosive room. How much force energy is that going to put out if it explodes?
It's a vacuum.
Yeah, so it's what they're doing is putting it in
microphone, please.
Excuse me. What we're doing is making an explosion-proof room so there's no kind of sparks or anything that could light the vapor on fire. That's not made to explode.
Okay.
It's going through all of the needs or whatever that it takes so that we don't have an explosion.
So the alcohol could still explode?
Right, but with all the ventilation and the right electrical fittings, there's no way that it can ignite. even though, you know, no matter what the concentration is, it can't ignite because there's no source of ignition. And that's what explosion proof actually dictates or defines.
Okay.
The other question I had on that is, what is the smell that's emitted from that machine?
It's going to be kind of like what it would be when you open up a bottle of isopropyl alcohol. You're just going to kind of get that alcohol smell, but with all the filters that come with the filtration mechanism, that all is cleaned up. HEPA type filters, that all that smell is cleaned up.
And that is a 5 or 10 minute soak in the alcohol inside that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On the alcohol, it's going to be reused?
Yes, it's reused a couple times.
A couple times, then is it disposed of?
Usually most of the time it ends up, you just have loss due to evaporation, and some part of there's a small amount left in the material when we're done. This press that we're looking at, the gentleman that sells that tells me that it will remove 95% of the alcohol that's in that material. So there's still a 5% loss in that. So although we do reuse it, we do lose a little bit along the way.
So what do? Just keep adding to your total? You don't replace the whole batch of alcohol?
Right.
Okay.
Whatever we're short or whatever we've lost, we just add a little bit to that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So you can continue to do that without the alcohol breaking down?
Yeah.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what you're alluding to is if you take that alcohol out of there, what do you do with it to get rid of it?
Yeah.
Well, the way, like I said, it's just no bigger of an outfit than we have. We just keep adding to it a little bit, and we never do discard it.
Just never? Okay.
Yeah, we just put it back in the container to reuse again.
And the water? What happens with the water? Is it in contact with the material?
No.
Never?
No, the only water that exists is in the water bath heating up the glass ball. There's no water in any other part of the
And that's
process.
outside the ball then?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's just a bath to keep that at temperature about 97 degrees Fahrenheit.
And Dr. Bellantoni, you said that thing spins? Is that what creates a vacuum?
The globe. Can you go back to that?
Or does it?
The globe. The
globe spins so that it keeps into the water.
This is a real common tool in the chemistry world. Called a roto-evaporator is the technical definition.
I'd like to go back to the water. So that silver containment right here, this right here, that with the globe out has a capacity of 10 gallons.
Okay.
So when they lower it in, of course, you can't put 10 gallons, probably more like 5, maybe 7, because you can see a third to half of the globe is down inside that warmer water, 97. Keep in mind, water boils at 212. And so that water, and you saw this in the application, that water is what is the industrial water. It's the 10 gallons of industrial water that has to be hauled to the site to keep that topped off. And Mr. Peets has plenty of commercially available use water from his ranch. So they really just need a 5-gallon bucket.
And this is the machine that's out there?
This is
this
the
one?
machine.
Is the compressor, where's the compressor? Where's the suction?
So there is no compressor. There's actually a vacuum pump that you can't see that's up above on a top shelf. So there's no compression. That's all vacuum.
It's all vacuum.
All vacuum.
Okay. Any other questions right now?
Not at this time.
Okay, let's move to a staff report. Matt?
All right. They did make application for the industrial use for the hemp processing. The notifications, the publication and posting was completed as required. This did go to Planning Commission on February 6th. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this with some contingencies. The first contingency was compliance with requirements or questions from the county engineer in his review of original concerns in his letter dated December 27th. And since then, he has reviewed it again, and I think they're pretty close to having everything completed on his list. but that still needs to be a contingency item. Number 2 is corrections to the drawing prior to recording. There's just some minor corrections that need to be made on that. Number 3, letters from the Florence Chief and Fire Suppressant System Inspector. And as Ms. Bellantoni did note, we did receive a letter from the Fire Suppressant System Inspector. We are still waiting for a letter from the Florence Fire Chief. In the application, they did provide a fire authority notification. The concern from the Planning Commission was that it didn't look at the entire process, the storage of the hemp on site, different things of that nature. So we wanted that to be re-looked at by the fire department, and so we are waiting on that. Ms. Bellantoni did note that it's been difficult to get a hold of the fire department. I tried myself and had no success in that as well. That's just a note there. And then the Planning Commission did recommend that a condition of the SRU, and this will be in the resolution, that the restaurant, if the restaurant is to reopen, that all building codes will have to be met. There's concern regarding the fire codes and separation and things of that nature. So when and if the restaurant is ever opened, it needs to meet the required building codes. Just to note, there is an existing liquor license for that restaurant that is still valid for a little while longer. They have renewed for, I believe, 4 or 5 years. So that is still outstanding on the property. The agreement with this, the way the resolution will be, is that the event center itself cannot be used for events any longer. All the events and everything pertaining to the original approvals will be held outside. The event center will only be used for the hemp processing, and no restaurant or anything like that will open inside. So that will remove that issue from the inside of the building. So. But if it does want to reopen, then you have to meet all the codes and requirements. So, yeah, sorry. So other than that, if you have any questions.
I have, I'm not certain if it's a question or a comment, and Matt, I'm not sure if you need to answer this or maybe if Brenda could shine some light on it. I have a concern that we have been trying, both as a county and as an applicant, to contact the fire chief for both Penrose and Florence. My concern is that we cannot force another agency to be responsive to the questions that we have. So the fact that we have inquired several times gives me concern. So what if we did choose to approve this with a contingency item saying we approve, but you must get a letter from the fire chief? What if that letter never comes?
I'd recommend against it. We have had this issue come up many, many times over the years. And holding up a business application, waiting on someone to respond who may never respond is hardly fair to the applicant.
That is my concern.
And so we ask that they notify. If the agency determines that they don't want to respond, that's not the fault of the applicant, as long as the proper notifications have gone out. We have not asked for more than 20 years that they produce a letter from an agency that has chosen not to respond. So that puts the fire district in charge of this application rather than the board. And this is really a board decision. So
I carry the belief that if the fire chief had a major issue with this, we would have heard from him by now. And that might be inaccurate, but that would be my belief.
I have a question for you, Matt, on the fire suppression system that was tested. Reading through all of this material, it is 12.5 gallons, I think. Is that enough to put out a fire if these bags are in there full of dry weeds?
I don't know if I can answer that.
Say that again?
The sprinkler system, according to what I've read in here, is 12.5 gallons per minute, I believe is what it is. Per hour. It may be even per hour.
No, it's less than that. No, it has to be per minute.
That would be just a trickle.
Per head.
So
per sprinkler head.
So the sprinkler heads, there was also talk about that. Is there enough volume of water if this stuff in these bags was to combust to put that out?
Commissioner McFall, I can answer that.
Okay.
And I have learned through this application that a sprinkler system, and I learned this through the State Division of Fire and Safety,
They did the inspections on this system
And
originally.
yes, and the third-party inspection, and I'm not remembering the name of the company. So I've talked to two different, one a state agency and then one a private third-party inspector. Sprinkler systems are designed to flood a building in a specific amount of time. That's what the goal is, and they make sure there's enough pressure. And there's two pump systems, correct, for this fire system? There's two pump systems in this. It's so big. And so those, every head was checked, all the lines were checked, all of the all that was checked, and it will flood the building in just a few seconds because of that spacing of the heads and the pressure of 12.5 per head.
Per head.
Don't be there.
So when they tested this, the water was on when they tested the system?
They
Because I
have
also
to.
read in there where
They
the
have
water's
to.
been off for a while.
Okay, no. The water for the use as a public water system for the restaurant is not there. That's because that's potable. The other water for sanitation is there, fire suppressant is there. That is there. Yes.
Because that's just a big concern since the closest fire hydrant is 10th and C, evidently.
Yes.
So it's got to be able to put itself out.
Yes, and I also found out that fire report that I have in there that I got back when I talked to Chief Sunderman on March 1st, because of the change, the retirement of Chief McKinnon, Chief Sunderman actually did that report. He told me that and submitted it, and Chief McKinnon signed it as his last piece there. And I also know that Chief Sunderman has been called to the site because the alarm system works. There was a weather issue that froze one of the pumps, and he was called to the gate, and I think Laszlo ended up meeting him there, yes, to come on site and look at the frozen pump and fix it. So the alarm system for the fire system works. I, too, had to learn about, so what about the use of the building? And they said, we just flood the building. That's our goal. Absolutely flood the building regardless of what it's used for, and make sure we have enough pressure and the water's available.
How tight are those bags packed?
Oh.
Not specifically tight, it's pretty loose. We don't pack it or anything like that. It's just free.
It's loose.
Say again?
Loose.
Yeah, but when the plant comes in, it's not loose flour.
Oh, no, you saw it. You saw you saw the dried plant. That's how it comes in there at the very first slide. That's how it comes in, and then the dried flour is pulled off.
Okay. Any other questions this time? Okay, this is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing. Does anybody have any comments on this? Come on up. If you would fill out a slip and give it to our county clerk, please. It's right there. Go ahead and state your name and your address.
My name's Dan Chrysler, and I border the Crossroads Event Center on the east. And my concerns are, I've got several. My biggest one is contamination of any water. Most of the people down there are all on wells, and on their picture that they show on the east side of their building, there's a water that runs freely through there. Only probably 75 feet from the building. I know recently I think they've piped that. Part of it was already piped, but it carries water down to the south. Don't know exactly where it goes from there. Also on the north, where they're proposing to drop on their drop zone, all their sacks of stuff and everything for unloading, I assume, is a swell there that runs to the east, which drops right down onto my property. My well is right there. I wanted to find out if what is going to be running down there from the bags that they're bringing there, because my understanding is the oil comes from the seeds. So are we going to populate that entire drainage from there down to my place and across property down there with hemp? I want to find out some of the stuff that they have answered is what solvents are going to use. I've looked up some of the processes that they have. I don't think it's a very good process, just because of the fire danger. I want to find out what type of smell is going to be coming off of it, and then I want to find out what type of traffic. If there's many, recently, last summer, they put a 10-foot privacy fence around, or chain link fence around the entire property. Left several places for entrance and exit into the property. I have a easement on the north end of my property for ingress and egress, and I want to find out if that's going to be used a lot as far as any traffic through there.
Can you point out where that might be on the map? Dan?
Dan, it's up here.
Yeah.
Where's it at on the map?
Can you point out where you're talking about on the north end of your property, the easement? There should be a pointer there, maybe. Is there one there?
I can figure out how to do it. Come on. Maybe I'm not pushing it right. It's right here. That's my property right here.
Okay.
And that's going to be the easement right there.
Okay, thanks.
Property comes across it. I've got issues with that right now. I'm trying to get some of that resolved right here. There's the actual road. B Street actually this is actually B Street right here. 12th comes down, comes through, and then this is actually B Street here that runs down to the other properties down there. This is where he's fenced. That's his fence. The property, this runs right down, right through, and into my property right here. This is the drainage right here. I can't hold still. But it runs right there. My house sits approximately right here.
So is that just a natural drainage that
Yes.
you're talking about, water that's running?
Absolutely.
It's not being released from
I
anywhere?
have pictures on my phone of heavy rains we got this last year, of water coming down almost, it washed the road out one other year, but last year I got several big rains where it washed out B Street, right there where it comes down off the Broken Spoke. It comes down through and where it washed across the road and almost totally washed the road out a second time last year. Then it comes down off the bluff. This road comes down off this bluff right up here, drops down off, and washes this road out all the time right here, almost totally washes it out. I've been, a lot of the people that live back up in here on the top we put money into it last year and tried to put some sand and gravel on the road to upgrade the road a little bit, but it all washed out then during the August and September rainstorms we had up there. Some of my other concerns down there are the hours of operation that they're going to have. It doesn't sound like they're going to be down there for, 24 hours a day. It sounds like they may be there for maybe 8 or 10 hours a day, hopefully during the day, and not a lot of noise coming from it. And if they plan to expand over any period of time, does it have to be re-permitted for them to expand? My understanding, it's going to be for only a small amount of what they have, like this 3,000 pounds or whatever, or are they planning on expanding and bringing in hemp from other places and making the operation larger? My other deal is why are they using the facility there to process when they could have a processing plant at site? That's my other concern. Why are they transporting these bags from one place to another, processing it, putting it all back in bags, and then hauling it away? Some of the stuff that I've researched on it, some of the people, when they get done with the stems or whatever, they just burn them. And I want to find out if that is in their plans, or if they plan on bagging it and then shipping it out a second time.
Okay.
And like I say, I'm not that far away. I'm less than a quarter of a mile to the east, straight downwind. There's other places up on top. They've got small children. My wife has very bad COPD, and she doesn't need any help from any type of chemicals. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Dan.
Tina, you had a slip. Is it this public hearing or the next one?
Actually, I think I'll just wait for the next one.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any comments on this one? Okay, we will close the public hearing. Ms. Bellantoni, do you want to answer some of these questions?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As we talked about, the only water on the premises other than the sanitation, which is in a Taj Mahal septic tank that was constructed back when the building was built in the early 2000s and has a special state permit, which requires monthly and quarterly inspections by a impartial third party, which we do, which Mr. Peets does. The only water is that 10 gallons, or, well, it's not, it's 5. And it's much like the alcohol in that as that ball spins, they only have to put back in there what has evaporated or has been pulled off by the flask. So there is no outdoor water drainage from the process. And there is a septic tank on site that is regulated by the state of Colorado. The easement that Mr. Chrysler spoke to, there is, could you show our plat map? Because there is an easement on there that's been there forever, and it belongs to a person who owns a spring off-premise, off-site to the north, and that's his easement, and yeah. And it has nothing to do with Mr. Peets other than the fact it's in his legal description, and of course it's restricted, and the owner of this easement can build this pipeline, and he has ponds that he can store water. This is not Mr. Peets' drainage, his easement there. That pipe he's talking about that's coming from a spring to the north off-site and it goes, it's not Mr. Peets', okay?
So the traffic would all come off of 115?
Yes, all that access, the gated access where the sign is posted is the only. And right now there's 2 to 3 employees, there would be, most likely. And regarding the storage, you saw the storage. The storage of the super sacks was inside, and you saw those stems that were stored on the wall, the north wall of the arena where the hammer mill is, so that they can make the compost. So there are no storage sacks outside.
Is it unloaded inside?
Is it, excuse me?
Is it unloaded inside the building or outside?
Because remember, the arena has great big doors. So
but on the south end of the arena, or the building? Is it unloaded from the south end or north side?
Yeah, we brought them from both ends. We bought some in the north end and some in the south end, the inside of the arena.
Remember, there's 2 big double doors back there, 2 sets of. Okay, so the water well contamination, there isn't any. There's a septic, there isn't any water spilled on the ground. The water easement is platted and respected. It belongs to somebody else. The bags are stored indoors. We've already talked about the solvents. The access is from 115, and just for employees, and then, of course, whoever drives the truck when it comes in. Regarding the drainage plan, when the building was constructed, there was a drainage plan that was approved by the building department, submitted during the SRU 2008, which is before I was along. And then since that time, I wish I'd brought my pictures of the cleanup in back. Since that time, since this has started actually, Mr. Peets and Steve and Laszlo have cleaned up this back, the east side of the building, which was the veterinary where he kept his animals, and it was a mess. And this is all cleaned up, and Laszlo found the designed drainage that comes off of the gutters, and he found the said pond right down there on the bottom. This is where the drainage cuts to, and I sent pictures of this to Director Koch. He found this, and we actually have drainage cut across here that drains into a detention pond right here that was all sized when it was when the building was constructed. So there's your drainage. These ponds are not Mr. Peets' ponds. These ponds. Okay.
There's actually a huge, if I may, there's a huge rift. So between right in this area here, this is the contour of the ground. There's no way that the water can ever get past this point. This is about 6 or 8 feet taller than the building surface area, or the floor of the building. Therefore, all of this country here, none of this water drains. All of the water from this point here all drains right down to this catch pond here. There's no way that any of the water in this area can get down off into this gulch. It's impossible. So all of the drain water that comes from around this building is with the, whatever you want to call it, the authorities, the waste water comes down here and catches in this pond. So there's no way that any runoff water can get back towards this area here.
And I wonder if, keeping in mind that this place has had intermittent use, if use at all, and this gentleman who owns this easement it was an open ditch, this was an open ditch, and he has put a pipe in it to a certain degree. We are wondering if, and it stopped, and this is pretty much in disarray right now. We wonder if it's too high and gravity flow's not working, so he has to come back in when the spring comes and he has finances and to fix this. But the other thing is that there is a little bitty pond for anything, a detention that's supposed to be right about here, that's supposed to collect anything that runs off to the north, but it's at the toe of this berm for that easement, but right now that is in disarray, and I would bet what's probably going to happen is Mr. Laszlo is going to get the task of just making that nice and compacting the said pond, because we don't know when that other gentleman's going to come in and fix his water easement. So I hope I've addressed those questions.
I'm sorry, would you address the byproducts again? What are the stems, the flowers,
absolutely.
everything?
That's the beauty of hemp. I kind of like the idea of the complete recycling and reuse. So the plant comes in. The stem is hammer milled and becomes compost, taken back off site. The flower is processed. The processed flower is, if they rent this thing, but it's right now even used as cattle feed, so it's taken off site. The alcohol is reused. Now, as I understood it, that alcohol also can be sold to distilleries for whiskey and those people who do the hard liquor distillation, and they can use it. They actually like that oil because it does have a little aroma of the agricultural flavor in their alcohol. So everything is reusable, recycled, re-entered into, and back in. Did I answer all of that, Commissioner McPaul?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One other question that Mr. Chrysler brought up was the hours of operation. I know it's in our packet, but could you just briefly explain what those
normal
are?
hours of operation, just a business day, 8 to 5. I mean, it's just a few. You saw it takes 30 minutes to do a batch. It's very labor intensive, and well, it's not labor intensive. It's just hands-on. Just a normal business day.
But your hours of operation would be limited to the time that you put in the application. Do you recall what those times are, or maybe?
In the Planning Commission, you have 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Planning Commission minutes.
In the minutes.
Oh, I do?
6 days a week, I believe.
Yeah, Monday through Saturday.
5 days a week.
You know what that allows for, I believe, is keep in mind that hemp isn't a...
I'm just going by this.
I think that was it. That's a good question. Thank you. Keep in mind that hemp has to be grown and then harvested, and so they have to process this. If they're going to process this on site, they have to process it during the winter, which is part of the reason this 1,200 pounds has been sold. It's time to start tilling the ground and planting again. It's farming season. So they don't have time to be in this building. So regarding traffic, most likely, if you'll allow them, approve this to let them finish processing their 300 pounds, all they're going to be doing is cleaning up, shutting down, taking care of anything you guys say we have to take care of, because they have to get to the field. So when the hours were asked for, because they have only from end of harvest till planting season to process. That's their focus.
And the actual application is 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. It does not give days of the week, so it's 7 days a week.
6 days a week.
Does it say 6 days? Thank you.
6 days a week, yeah.
Monday through Saturday.
Well, I'm looking on page 4 of 34 of the application. What hours of the day will the proposed use be in operation? 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Will different aspects of the proposed use need to operate at different times of the day? The answer is no.
Yeah, it doesn't specify the day.
It's number 17
I see Monday
in the
through
answers.
Saturday.
Where is that?
16 right above it.
16.
Huh. Well, thank you. Okay, so Monday through Saturday?
Yes, sir.
Excluding
Thank you.
Sundays?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Anything else for Ms. Bellantoni?
I do have a couple of other questions. Sorry.
No, you're not.
When you are processing the piece outside that is currently being done outside, is that always attended? Do
Oh,
you
gosh.
ever walk away from that?
No, we never walk away from it. It's always attended.
By at least one person?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm also curious to know, estimated duration of the proposed use in years is 15 years, but you also are requesting duration of this to be life of use. So I want to know why life of use is only 15 years.
I apologize, Mr. Peets. I was looking at how old we are. I'm serious. I was looking at to say life of use. This is not like a gravel pit where the gravel stays there and, you know, if the owner passes it to the sun. That's not what this is. This is Mr. Peets' operation with Mr. Rorick, and I really seriously just said, what is a realistic life of use? Look how old we are, and I'm serious. Oh, you want me to be honest?
That's not how we look at life of use, though.
I understand that. So I picked, you know, I say within 15 years, Mr. Peets is most likely going to be living on an island in the Caribbean. That's kind of what I am really serious. So that's why I picked 15 years for when you asked me for an exact duration, and I sometimes have problems distinguishing
We
between.
asked for an estimated duration, not an exact.
Okay, well, that's
so 15
that
years. So 15 years may actually not be a realistic expectation.
Well, these permits are transferable.
That's my point.
With the approval of the board.
Yes.
Okay.
It would come back to the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a couple more questions. One that Mr. Chrysler brought up was, are they just going to process their own product? They're going to bring other people's in? What's the plan with that? We're talking 3,000 pounds right now from last year. You may or may not get that again this year because we don't have any water yet, but what's the plan?
The plan is to process our own material.
Only.
But if you did bring in some other ones, you have your hours of operation in your days. Correct? Yeah.
I think what the concern maybe with that, or what I could see is that that building being completely full of them heavy bags.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a concern I would have, yeah.
Because that is a monster building.
It is.
No.
It's huge, and that's why I
Yeah.
asked, you know, how much is in each bag, and if you put
Frankly,
several hundred bags in there.
just thinking about that, if you stop and think about that, and you just set stuff out there to store, considering how labor-intensive this process is, I mean, it's a very hands-on process, how much of that would mold and ruin before it got through processing?
It's supposed
if they
to be
really,
dry. It shouldn't mold.
Well, everything has moisture content, and there's always the roof that leaks, and there's always that sort of thing. But I would think that it would not be a good use of space or the product if they couldn't get it processed within a reasonable time. I would think they would lose it. I don't know. That's just everything deteriorates.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes.
Okay.
This may not be so much a question as a comment. I haven't discussed this with my fellow commissioners. I have a serious concern that at some point in the future you could be looking at reopening the restaurant or having events directly above this. I do know the department is recommending a condition that should the restaurant reopen, all building codes must be met. I'm not certain, in my opinion, that that's quite enough. So I may be recommending, so I maybe would like a comment on this. I may be recommending the condition that if this is approved, it would put SRU 08-001 into abeyance, meaning we cannot bring it out without board approval, so that SRU would be inactivated.
I actually had that same concern. Thank you.
What exactly did you say?
She just said Just for clarity,
yes.
You suggested that you would propose a motion for approval if the SRU 08 was put in abeyance.
If there is a motion for approval, I am suggesting adding that to put SRU 08-001 in abeyance, which is basically an inactive status, and it could not be reactivated until the Board of County Commissioners at that time approves it.
So we have to go through another SRU?
No.
Would we just come here to a public meeting and intentions and then talk
Yes.
to Mr. Darden and Meister Cox?
At that time, we could have those conversations with those people and reassure ourselves that this would not be an issue.
Yeah, we can go through Matt or Sid, or they can approve that, okay, and look at it, okay. Part of my issue here.
Would you come up to the mic, sir?
Yeah, let's do that.
State your name.
I'm Bill Keats. I'm the owner. And part of my issue here was Violet down in Florence got approved in a week, okay? Since then, we had to get the maps together, get Angela involved, okay, because I'm no good at paperwork. Okay, I have to hire it out, but Violet extraction down there in Florence got approved in a week, okay, in Florence. All right, it's been 3 months in this process. I turned myself in, okay? I called Matt and said, hey, can we do this, okay? And he went through the process. I got in a shouting match with him. I said, how can they get approved in a week and it takes me 3 months? You know, this would be a normal process. So if we can set up something to where Matt can look at it, Sid can look at it, okay, and approve it, fine, I'm fine with that, okay? The whole purpose of this hemp deal in the first place, okay, is to help people with cancer, other items, okay? I've done a lot of research on this, okay? And the cannabinoid in the CBD oil attacks a cancer cell without going ahead and harming the healthy cells, okay? And there's studies in Israel that have come over this, okay? And it's real beneficial, okay? So if we can go ahead and produce the right hemp, produce the right oils that can help the people, okay? I'm all about that, okay? And that's the whole purpose of this in the first place, okay? So that's where I'm pretty much coming from.
So I think the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I should have just said yes.
Okay, we finally got there. Okay, good, thank you. Any other comments, questions?
I just kind of, a nod will work fine, Mr. Chrysler. Did that answer your questions?
What's that?
Did that answer your questions, your concerns?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this? Questions?
That may be everything.
Did you think about adding that as a contingency or what?
I believe, Brenda, if we choose to put SRU 8001 into abeyance, that would be a condition?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Your wishes.
Sure, Mr. Chair. I will move for approval of SRU 17-006 for Crossroads for a special review use to allow hemp processing at the Crossroads Business Center. This is going to be resolution number 10. It includes contingency items 1 and 2, as already described by Mr. Koch. It includes waiver requests that were originally waived with the previous SRU for this property. It does include the additional notifications. It also includes condition number 1 that should the restaurant ever reopen, all building codes must be met. And I'm also adding condition number 2, putting SRU 08-001 into abeyance, with it coming out only with this board's approval.
I will second that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
One thing I would like to state, I know we've talked about this same issue at some of our recent meetings. And that's really the concept of free enterprise. We have many people who are saying they need to keep it as a restaurant, they need to keep it as an arena. They've tried for years and years and years to make a go of it, and it's simply the business plan apparently does not work. We also are disappointed to see it really going away as an opportunity for the community to be used as that, but this is really not our choice to say you have to leave it as an arena and to do business that way or as a restaurant. So I just wanted to make that clear. We also may not always like the choices that are made for businesses, but when the community cannot support a business, I understand that it sometimes has to go away. So just a comment.
I had just kind of a comment too on that. I would agree on everything Commissioner Bell just said, and then in hopes that you guys work, if the neighbors have a problem, work with them, be good neighbors. A good business is good neighbors, so that's all I ask.
Okay. Any other further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to item number 4, amendments to zoning resolution. We have, I'll let Matt talk about these. Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay. There are several amendments we are looking at doing. I'll run through those really quick. The first one is regarding, let's see, in the business zone district. This will be adding the definition of dwelling multifamily. This will be 3 units or more per structure. It will be the primary use on the property. No additional uses will be permitted and is subject to approval of a commercial and site development plan. Continuing on, we are looking at adding in the business zone district a solar panel field definition and is subject to approval of a commercial and site development plan. We are also looking at watchman's quarters, providing for a single-family dwelling or efficiency unit dwelling, only provided and removing provided that such is constructed within the principal use building and then leaving only one such dwelling per premises. And this is watchman's quarters associated with a business on the property. This is basically detaching the watchman's quarters from the primary structure. Continuing on, under the watchman's quarters definition, again, removing the requirement for the construction within the principal use building and providing attached or detached. And then under the general regulations, again with the watchman's quarters, we will be removing a watchman's quarters may consist of an office, living, sleeping, kitchen, and bathroom facilities constructed within the principal use building. We'll be removing that. Then under storage structures, we are changing the shipping container definitions, and I'll read these in full. 3.8.1.1, tractor trailers, railroad cars, cabooses, or shipping or storage containers may be used as a storage structure in the agricultural forestry, agricultural farming and ranching, agricultural living, agricultural estates, agricultural suburban, or agricultural rural zone districts. And then we will be removing if it is used to house items for an agricultural use on the subject property. And then we'll be leaving and in the industrial zone as an accessory use to the principal use. 3.8.1.2, single shipping or storage container may be used for removing temporary storage, and then removing when associated with construction or permanent structure. And then continuing on down, and removing, however, when construction is completed, the shipping or storage container shall be removed. Continuing on, in the industrial zone district, We'll be adding the definition of a slaughterhouse and a solar panel field. And then modifying the watchman's quarters to remove, provided the such is constructed within the principal use building and that's it. The Planning Commission did review this. They did recommend approval of these changes at the February 2nd meeting, I believe.
Okay. Any questions from Matt at this time?
It was the January 2nd meeting.
Sorry, January meeting.
Okay, get that clarified.
No.
Nothing right now? Okay.
Not at this time.
Okay, this is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing. Ms. Hefner, I believe you wanted to speak on this.
Good morning. My name is Tina Hefner. I live at 295 5th Street in Penrose, Colorado. I would like clarification on the watchman's quarters. Based on what I'm seeing, could you explain that a little bit further, Matt? Is it going to actually be a single-family dwelling, or is it going to be, or could it be a trailer, motorhome, something of that sort?
It'd be whatever is allowed in the zone district as part of their development plan. So it will have to be attached to their development plan, the commercial development plan, and shown what they're specifically going to be doing. So it depends on what's allowed in there. It'll be comprised of whatever's legal, whatever can be built by code.
Okay. So basically you're saying, but from what I'm understanding that you're saying, is that a trailer on a property could be considered a watchman's quarter for the property if it consists of something that falls within the code. Is that correct?
What kind of trailer are you referring to?
Motorhome, camper trailer.
There's no living in habitation in an RV.
Okay, thank you. For more than 90 days, correct?
It depends on what zone. 2 weeks in some zones.
Okay, thank you. That's
Yep.
what I wanted to know.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tina.
Anybody else want to comment on this issue? Okay, seeing none, I close the public hearing. Any other further comments or questions?
The only comment that I would make, Mr. Chair, is that I think the Planning and Zoning Department does fairly well with trying to keep up with the times. Some of the changes that we're looking at making today, we are looking at making simply because people are asking for them, because our way of life does tend to change over time. So this is just an attempt for this board to kind of keep up with some of those changes and to be reactive to what our residents are asking of us.
I absolutely agree with that. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve the amendments to the zoning resolutions for Fremont County zoning. Do I need to list those? No. As presented.
This is resolution number 11.
Resolution 11.
And I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner McFall?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Commissioner Payne?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. With that, we're no further business coming before this board. We are adjourned.
Child maltreatment prevention team. So it was actually put on originally. So Kathy Kennedy with Stark was the original one that started. So it's a grant that was
Unit in
I didn't see any.
The application does not specify that it's limited to one.
Just what? You're saying you can bring in 2, 3, 4?
You can bring in.
So we've had two so far, which invited me and I couldn't make it.